Hi, everyone. Raghu here with my, I don't know, second or third oldest buddy in the entire world, in the universe. The man who started out with Mindrolling with me and who I was going to say to you, Dave Silver. Of course, everybody knows David. Hi, David.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Um, I was going to tell you before, actually, that whenever I do a podcast, there's some preparation involved and, a little bit of, okay, I've really got to get my shit together and be very present and, the thought that I have to continually keep the conversation going, like a talk show host kind of and they all have, well scripted out pretty much. And then it comes to you, and I thought, because I've been putting a bunch together because I'm going to India, and so I've been doing a lot of them. And then I was going to tell you that the thought of doing this one with you on this lovely Saturday afternoon, not one shred of anxiety did I have.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear that. That's great.
So it's more of a joy. Oh, okay, I can relax and hang out. We can hang out and do what we do normally.
Yeah, right.
Hang out and chat. That's all.
Right.
So we do have a little bit of an agenda today, but before we get into it, just wanted to, first of all, bring back a couple of the things. I don't really do much anymore. One of them is recommending stuff for Amazon that people can get through our BeHereNowNetwork.com Amazon link. Do you know, I've got to believe you know about this book. It's a new oral history of Bob Marley. Do you know it?
No.
It's called So Much Things to Say from that song.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Roger Steffens. Do you know Roger?
I do.
Ooh, that's pregnant. The review is by Touré, by the way. Touré.
Great. I remember him from television.
Who? Roger or Touré?
No, Touré. I know Roger for 40 years. I haven't seen him for a while. Touré was a host on MTV for years, and then on MSNBC for more years.
Oh, yeah, because he was familiar to me as well.
He's a fabulous guy, and a terrific analyst of just about everything. Very much admire that guy.
Well, he was pretty high about this book, David, and
yeah, I'm sure it's good. I'm sure Roger's very, very detailed. He knows what he's talking about.
Mm. And there's one beautiful thing in here. Every once in a while, a special artist comes along, someone who appears to speak for the people. It's in his music, his life story, his worldview, and the way he carries himself. He seems like an extension of the people and their leader. His music does not come across as a commercial gesture because it's as if he's on the public stage to speak for his constituents and give voice to their feelings and their needs. He seems like a sort of cultural senator, a man who represents his people who vote for him with their dollars and their love. No music star in the Western world has ever been a more powerful cultural senator on the global stage than Nesta Robert Marley. Nice, huh?
Yeah, I think it's true. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I would just interpolate that in one of the many meetings I had with him, or video tapings with him.
With Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many times I did that. Probably 15. But in the one that was the most important, which was the last one, in August or early September of 1980, when he was already ill, my friend Earl Chin, the first and only great reggae VJ, who you know, was interviewing him, and there's a part which eventually you'll see because I have it, not today, but upcoming, shall we say. And Earl asked him a question which I knew was the wrong question. He said, "Well, man, what's it like to be a superstar, man?" And Bob leaned back. He said, not superstar, not such a thing, man. I'm a messenger, man, of Jah." I'm a messenger. That is it. The superstar, no, it's nothing. And, that's what Roger or Toure, whoever wrote that, was that Toure's or Roger's writing?
No, that was Toure.
Okay, Toure. Senator is a nice way of putting it, because he did represent, he represented third, or what he called first world people. And he represented people of color everywhere. He also represented the poor and incredibly oppressed of Kingston, that where he was brought up, where there was incredible poverty, still is, and where the country's run by like 8 families or something. And the people lived very badly there when I was first going there in the 70s. And Bob was very conscious of that and never lived in a regal manner. He had a nice house in Hope Road. Wasn't a particularly great house, and it had a concrete yard. And, he was very humble. He drove a BMW because he liked the fact that BMW was the same as Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Really?
He told me that, yeah. Because I saw his Beamer, and he said, "Yeah, man, in Bob Marley Whaler man car." So that's yeah, really. So but Touere is right. He did represent globally. I mean, even in India, you see so many people wearing Bob Marley T-shirts, and
oh no, absolutely globally.
Right? Yeah.
And it's one thing that's in this article, that his former business manager Colin Leslie, I don't know if you knew him, said that he thought so there were many people who depended on Marley for hot meals, or just money for food, or money for sustainability. And he said people say Marley supported around 4,000 people.
Wow.
And Leslie thinks it was more.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? And talk about love everyone and feed them.
Yeah, that is incredible. I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, he just used that. He was extraordinarily generous, and that's what he did. He fed people.
Wow.
Gave money away.
He never thought he was a guru of any kind. What he thought was that the words and the music represented for him a direct channel to a sort of universal morality, and he was the most adept, I guess, at communicating that in Jamaica at that time. And he was beloved, absolutely beloved by everyone. And if you mention Bob Marley, that you were working with him or something, you'd get free grub or free anything, because people just loved him. He didn't do anything ever to alienate the real people in his home country. He never acted in an arrogant manner, although his manner itself was kind of not arrogant, but certain. I've never met anyone who was more absolutely imbued and steeped in his spirituality, except for people you and I both have met, and in India. But in the Western world, I've never met anyone like that. He was just he had a sense of humor, and he certainly checked out the women, and he was very normal like that. But when he would discuss his work, he would always attribute it to the divine rather than anything in his own ego or creativity or talent. He didn't have any use for those kind of words. Just was a messenger, as he said.
So great. And for those of you out there, these aren't available, unfortunately, because David has not made them available, although it's part of some of the things he's working on.
It is.
Actually. Oh, it is?
No, it's not available, although on YouTube occasionally people pick it out and then it gets sent off there. But I am actually in the process right now of trying to put together, it won't happen immediately, but by January of 18, a website I have 125 videos that I want to put on there of all kinds. And he's a big part of that. They will direct people to YouTube, because to have an archive on your own website, you need a huge amount of gigabytes. And
no,
so I don't want to do that. But there'll be a little commentary by me about each clip, and Bob is going to figure very prominently, in that.
Well, everybody, stay tuned, and when David does that, it'll all be hooked up to Be Here Now Network, and we're going to help promote it and everything. But there is one in particular that I've seen many times that David filmed with Bob doing a solo recording, video of him playing. What was that guitar he was playing called?
It was an Epiphone.
An Epiphone. Uh huh.
Yeah. He didn't have
Yeah.
a guitar that day. For some reason, he couldn't find the guitar. So we went to Manny's guitar store on 44th Street, I think it was, and begged them to lend us a guitar, which they were not going to do until I mentioned the word Bob Marley. And they said, "Oh, you mean he's going to touch this?" I said, "Yes, he is." And he could have just run off with it. I don't know why they trusted him.
Yeah.
But he did play that Epiphone, and he wasn't totally thrilled with the guitar. He was such a perfectionist. Raghu.
He did it over. What was the song actually? It's just
He
slipped my
did.
mind.
He did Redemption Song 9 times. He did Coming In
Yeah,
From
Redemption Song. Yeah,
10
my
times.
favorite song.
He did 19 takes of 2 songs, and we just all sat there in a kind of bliss state, you
Hmm.
know. And I must tell the story that after each one, he would ask Earl, Chin, and myself. We were sitting together. He'd say, "Well, what do you think?" And I'd say every time like a real sycophant, but I meant it. That was great. Nah, not good enough. And he'd do another one and another one, and they all sounded like to me. But I guess in coming from inside out, they weren't for him. And I wish I had all the takes. I don't.
Oh, really?
I don't. I
Oh,
have Coming
my
In From the
God.
Cold. I have Coming In From the Cold, and I have Redemption Song, the one that we actually
Yeah, used.
used. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you guys out there, stay tuned in, and as soon as David's ready, we're going to let everybody know. We'll get on the mailing list, by the way, BeHereNowNetwork.com, because then you're going to get informed about this, because this alone is worth the price of admission. Let me tell you.
Well, it's so great. I mean, that makes me tremendously joyous to think that we be in such, amazingly fabulous company, because those teachers and minds, hearts on both the app and on the website in general
Yeah.
are just immaculately useful to everybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm glad you mentioned that. The Heart Mind app, and I haven't talked about this in such a long time. It's such a great wealth of content. It's just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I recommend people just get it on their phone. And if they're waiting for a meeting or waiting for a doctor or on a train or a plane and something hits them that darkens them, just go to that app and you'll find something on there that will take you right out of that mood.
Yeah, it's only on Apple iOS right now because we can't afford to put it on the other platform, Android, and it's Heart Mind, one word. Just go there and pick it up. And also, again, go get this book, Stir It Up. It's that's not what it's called. It's called So Much Things to Say: The Oral History of Bob Marley by Roger Steffens. And please use our portal on BeHereNowNetwork.com and just bookmark it again. It's going to go a long way to help support what we're doing. So that's something I haven't done in a long time, Dave, and that recommendation.
Yeah, do it, because Roger, I didn't mean to be anyway cold about Roger. Roger's the ultimate archivist. He has the biggest Bob Marley archive in the world in Los Angeles, and you can go visit it, actually.
Oh, really?
Well, someone just emailed me and told me that, like yesterday. So that will be interesting. But listening to the music is... And if you're going to listen to the music and you want to listen to Exodus, get the Exodus Deluxe Edition, which has long dub versions and live versions of Exodus on it. And it's sort of like a double CD, I suppose. It's been out for a few years. It's worth... Don't get the original CD. Get that one for whatever it is, $5, $10, whatever more. You won't regret it, because it's just Bob Marley, unplugged. Fabulous, really.
Oh, I don't have that. I'm going to get it.
It's great.
Okay, now switching to another thing. We used to have this, little segment, News from the End of the World, and I haven't done that. And since the world is already ending...
Little did we know.
Yeah. There's not much we can say about that. Just pick up your paper every day. But so I thought instead, I have a tip for you, for us.
Okay.
Okay, it's a new thing. It's a way to get out of the prison of unexamined preferences. You know how we have major preferences in our lives that preclude us sometimes from taking a path that might be harder, but in the end, it might sort of toughen up our soul or toughen up our perspective, so that we can actually engage in our lives in a way that's not always running from pain, running from uncomfortable stuff. And so it's a therapy, okay? And I'm recommending it to you as well, Dave. Cold shower therapy.
Ooh.
See? Right away. Yeah. It's someone came up with this whole plan. So this guy's going, so repeated 1 to 2 million times with subtle variation is my life under liking and disliking merciless regime. They are vigilant, they are tireless, and they are in many cases squarely opposed to my self-interest, right? Liking and disliking. And as I discovered recently, there's nothing quite like a cold shower to reveal their essential fraudulence, because showers happen every day. And because they are so fundamentally unimportant, they are the perfect forum for dragging these little tyrants, as Ram Dass would call them, maybe schmooze, of preference into the light and forcing them to confess that they have all along been bluffing. In those moments before you step into the cold stream, disliking will invariably begin to shriek and do what you just did. Whoop, no, absolutely not. Can you imagine what that's going to feel like against our back, our chest, our genitals, for God's sake? And if you can summon the strength to say thank you, that's very interesting, and then proceed to step into the water anyhow, you will discover something. The cold water will, of course, hit your back and your chest and your genitals, and none of this will feel great. But if you can bear it for a few seconds, unclenching your muscles, relaxing your grimace, you will notice, as you begin to soap up, that disliking has fallen asleep. Can we try that tomorrow?
I've tried it. I mean, I've done cold showers, and it's
with this in mind.
Yes,
breaking through
absolutely
attachment.
Yeah, because it just
to
makes
preference.
Because I remember the experience when I was doing it. It was in India, actually, and
easier there.
Well,
you don't get hot water most of the time.
Right. The water was very cold, and the first time I did it, I thought I was going to die, and then a couple of times after that, I began to see that there were all kinds of stuff coming off me, similar to what he's saying. I remember it was like, wow, I'm so hooked on this. I'm so hooked on that.
Yeah,
I'm so into comfort. I'm such an American, European, spoiled, person who thinks that if you don't have hot water or you don't have a microwave or whatever, that you're deprived. And I began to feel that kind of, I suppose it was a sort of shame, actually, that to attach to comfort. This, but apart from that, it also, medically, it apparently does amazing things for you, because you hear about sports figures, NBA people, and British football, soccer players frequently take cold baths.
they get into an ice bath.
Yeah, and that's similar. It just sort of does work on their muscles, but also. It takes a certain kind of courage to just go in, and for the first few seconds, it is like murder. It's like you're being tortured.
Yeah. This is an article called Cold Showers by Ben Dolnick. Thank you, Ben. It was in the New York Times Magazine some time ago. And I guess I really related with it because, I'm a horrible person around wanting my preferential comforts, and I thought you were too, but you already gone through this exercise and come out on top.
Yeah, but I did it for 10 days and then was so thrilled that I wouldn't have to do it again. So I'm not a good practitioner of this, but I believe he's right. I really do, and I'm very big about hot showers. Actually.
Yeah. Well, in the end, of course, any way that one can use methodology to break through preferences, the Tao, where there is no preferences, right? That is the truth. if we can. Ram Dass reads that. What's the third Zen patriarch? That thing. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
We'll get that up on the. By the way, on the Mindrolling page, show notes page of this podcast, so you can. We'll get him to put that. The whole thing Ram Dass does. It's fantastic. Third Zen patriarch. It's all about what we're talking about, and you can kick it off by a cold shower tomorrow morning. All right, so I called Dave and I said, listen, I want to do a podcast because there's one thing that we never did it. We have mentioned this being that we're going to talk about in podcasts in the early days of Mindrolling, but we've never done a more comprehensive telling of his story, so to speak. And I'll tell you one thing, Dave. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but you know our friend, our new friend, fairly new in the last few years. We call him the Jungle Baba. He's an Indian Baba that we see and appreciate. Amazing being. He told actually a really good friend of mine. He said in the last century or so, there have been 3 beings that have exemplified being on this planet absolutely for no reason but to serve people, and are considered the highest siddhas. And siddha would be a completely accomplished, finished human that is not living in duality whatsoever, but still is able to maintain a body. Is still eating and defecating and doing all of that, right? So he named these 3. Now, this Jungle Baba is no one, I took him completely seriously. So one of them was Neem Karoli Baba. One of them was Shirdi Sai Baba, and the other one I don't remember the name, but we're not familiar with him. So pretty amazing. And I have always felt that there was such a connectivity between Neem Karoli Baba and Shirdi Sai Baba in the way they behaved, which was very odd, and not what you read about in, for instance, Autobiography of a Yogi, the saints that are described, Lahiri, and incredible beings. Something really, really distinguishably non-rational, the way that they behaved, and so on. Now, you all out there have heard, of course, a lot about Neem Karoli Baba and Maharaji, and Dave and I have talked about him ad infinitum, and he comes up a lot because of our relationship with him and because of Ram Dass and so on. But we have not talked a lot. David has talked a little bit about Shirdi Sai Baba, and I just thought that out of all these beings that we try and share with everybody out there, we need to do this with this inestimable realized soul.
Yeah, just should.
There he is. Shirdi Sai Baba. Now, this is to distinguish between Sai Baba from the Bangalore area of India, who left his body maybe 4 or 5 years ago. This is to distinguish that these are completely 2 different beings, although many people say that there is a connection between them. That's a whole other matter that we don't need to get into whatsoever. But David has been close to Shirdi Baba. And these beings, by the way, absolutely do not need a body to do what it is they do on a day-to-day basis. And David has been close to Shirdi Sai Baba for many, many, many years. Probably got me more introduced to him more than any other person that I know. And certainly it's been a big connector for us. And can you just tell a little bit about kind of when he lived and who he is?
He lived approximately at the exact same time, a little longer than Queen Victoria, who reigned from 1837 to about 1901 or something.
Mm.
He was born, I think, in that year, 1837. I could be wrong about this, but it was certainly sometime in the late 30s or early 40s of the 19th century. He died in 1918, which happens to be the end of the First World War. And much was documented. But, compared with those ascended masters like Ramakrishna, or, there were no huge books at the time written about it. And of course, there was no recording. So it's all comes from his devotees, and lots of books written. When you're in India, I'm sure you've seen this, Raghu, many times. You see Sai Baba
Everywhere.
Everywhere. I stayed in a hotel in Delhi, which was the Shirdi Sai Baba hotel, which had a huge picture of him above the entrance, and it was a very inexpensive hotel, but immaculately clean and really, really a very beautiful vibe. So Shirdi lived throughout that time, and he moved to the village of Shirdi mysteriously from nobody knows where. And the various stories about his parentage are completely weird, and as weird as anybody could be in terms of who they were and how they sort of dropped him in the woods somewhere. And he, at the age of, I think, about 16 or 17, just went to this place called Shirdi and took a residence under a neem tree, and that was it, and never left. And at first, the people who lived in that village didn't know who he was and thought he was a lunatic, and at best a faker. Because there was another person, a teacher of some kind in that village, who was very threatened by the sudden appearance of this young, beautiful man, who immediately exhibited all kinds of knowledge and a great deal of love and caring for the people of the village. So this guy opposed him forever and called him a faker and was, awful about it. But it wasn't long, apparently, probably by the early 1860s, that people began to understand who this person was. And he was a great siddha, a saint, and as Raghu perfectly put it, one of the most bizarre manifestations in a human body you could possibly imagine, which we'll get into. In other words, he did things that I've never heard of anybody else doing, and in terms of his own physical body, and he had no need for anything. I think the word side, besides meaning a divine entity, also means a mendicant. And that's what Sai Baba was. He begged for rice every day, and he never had, as it were, a cook or cooked his own food or had any food in his house. He just would go and beg it, and they would give it to him. And they felt that it was a great, an incredible blessing to be able to give him any food. So the women of the village in particular used to cook for him and come and bring food to him, but he would often walk around the village. And the most significant thing about him that first struck me when I first heard about him, which was in 1972, was that nobody ever knew, and this is a fact, whether he was a Hindu or a Muslim. And he made that part of his shtick. I mean, he was so against the idea of religions, organized religions, dividing human beings instead of uniting them in love, that he refused to, he called his temple, or the place he lived in actually, a masjid, as opposed to a temple. He wore clothes that were not in any way relatable to either religion. He spoke about the Quran. He spoke about Muhammad. He spoke about those people, as well as speaking about, Dattatreya and Shiva and the great Indian deities. So he made a point of this. And when you think about it, it's still such an amazingly prevalent part of our troubled world. And he just dismissed that and said, no way, this is not going to happen with me. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what you say you believe in or whatever. It may be true, may not be true. But what is true is the pervasive actuality of a divine being. And he exemplified that in everything he did. He had no other life. He just was at the service of the people of Shirdi and the surrounding villages. So there are many stories, and I just will stop here so Raghu makes the next incisive point, and then we can come back with some of the
No, I
stories.
mean, well, two things when you talk about him, and that is such a key, that he served both the Muslim and the Hindu communities. He'd force them to go into each other's temple and mosque, and they were, if you it would, the way it is today, how polarized it is today. It was as polarized or more back then, not more. It's just
Mm.
it's been going on for centuries, and he worked so hard at loosening that terrible proclivity to sectarianism. I mean, he worked so hard at that. With just by his being, he wasn't somebody who was thinking about doing things. There was no an ego actor whatsoever. There was just the unfolding of who he is, and so what. Very much similar to, there was a saint in the 16th century named Kabir, and Kabir also, he made a huge point of being of crossing the divide between Muslims and Hindus. And so I think there's a lot of connectivity there. And interestingly enough, Maharaj Nimkaroli Baba used to talk about Kabir as well, in the same way that we're talking about Shirdi Baba. And I don't remember him talking directly to us about Shirdi Baba. I think he did mention him. Listen, I was only there for a year and a half, and everything else is hearsay. But directly to me, I never heard that. But Kabir, I did. And so that is amazingly in sync with who Shirdi Baba is. And Maharaji himself also. What's the day after day, Sabek, there's only one. And he talked to us about Christ and Hanuman. So that was that blend. It wasn't, Mohammed and Shiva. It was Christ and Hanuman. But same thing, right?
Yeah.
Basically the same thing.
Definitely.
But you know what I'd love to hear? I know you've got some stories and stuff, but just a couple of the really enigmatic ones that you may recollect about him and the actions that he took in that village.
Well, on a fairly basic level, one of the things about Shirdi was that he would exhibit incredible fierceness occasionally. And
Right.
particularly towards, not particularly towards anything, but occasionally it would come out. And I remember reading in one of the many books written in India in the last 50, 60 years about him, that people would come sometimes to get his darshan and he would refuse them. And one of his great devotees, I think it was Hemad Pant, said to him, Baba, how could you refuse anyone? I mean, they come here and they know what you are and who you are, and yet you say no. And he said a strange, enigmatic thing, to use your word, Raghu, which was, he said, I've been with the same family through millions of incarnations, and I'm still with them. And I know who they are, and I know who I'm supposed to connect with, and those that don't either need my connection or I'm not supposed to connect with them. And everybody was sort of like, wow, that's a whole different view. And he actually was saying, you are sitting in front of me here in the masjid. I knew you then when you were so and so, and I knew you then when you were so and so. And it was his vision of his own service that he would keep servicing the same people who needed repeated treatment. So that was his sort of. But most of the people he was incredibly kind to, and he was a very joyous creature and sang and danced actually a lot. And there's great paintings. If you bother to, you can go to a million sites online about Sai Baba and Shirdi Sai Baba, and you'll see eventually there's a series of paintings which show him dancing, singing with a dog. He liked dogs and cats.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I have a beautiful picture of him with a dog. He liked cats too, and he liked children. And, he was the most beautiful and wonderful person to be around. But, and there's a big but there, some people had a hard time dealing with his massively strange behavior, one of the things he did, and I've forgotten the Indian name for this, but he used to, for instance, believe that he should clean his intestines. So he would,
Right.
and I mean, I'm going to say this, and if you don't believe it, that's probably smart. But on the other hand, maybe not. He used to vomit out his intestines, clean them with water, and then hang them on the line to dry, and then suck them back into his being. He also was known to take off his arms frequently and put them in a corner of the masjid. Okay, so let's just digest that for a minute. He would actually remove one or both of his arms and just put them somewhere. And then he would sit there like a motherfucker and wait for people to come in and go, you know, what is that?
Yeah.
And he'd laugh and say, that just, relaxing or something so ridiculous. So who knows?
That's beyond enigmatic,
Yeah,
maybe.
who knows? I mean, the trouble about this whole thing of belief in cities and strange behavior is if you weren't there, actually there, you can't attest to it. But I did want to tell one story, which I think is sort of important in the dynamic I've had with them and that other people have with saints and teachers that are no longer in the body. But you can have a relationship with them because they are beyond time and space. Maharaj in Shirdi Baba clearly has proven that millions of times. But Shirdi was more or less in that same boat. But my personal experience has been manifold. And the most recent one I had that I can remember was a few years ago. I was going through a depression, which seemed to be lasting for days, and I mean, I don't remember what caused it or whether I'm just basically depressive, but I remember feeling down and down and down and down, and couldn't get any work done and couldn't relate to anyone and was just in a horrible, hideous state. And then, bingo, I thought, Shirdi Sai Baba. I kind of begged him to help me, and nothing happened. And then either that night or maybe a night later, I don't remember honestly, I had a lucid dream. I don't even remember my dreams. I'm one of the people that no longer remembers dreams. It's rare for me to remember a dream anymore. And this dream, when I woke up in the morning, was as clear as day and incredibly powerful, but completely unintelligible. And what it was, I was in Shirdi. I didn't know what body I was in. I didn't seem to think it was me. But I was there. I think I was just a person there. And I was witnessing a very strange event. I was witnessing Shirdi Sai Baba sitting with a small grinder and grinding wheat. Now, analysts of his have said that that's because he was grinding karma for others, and that the elements as represented by the attachment to the body were represented in the wheat, and grinding the wheat was a symbolic way of saying, this is, you have to grind and work hard and meditate to get out all of this ego-based desire systems. But on this occasion, I remember in the dream watching him grind the wheat, and there were women, older women, sitting sort of next to him, and he was yelling at them. And I was just I didn't respond to any of this, but I was just watching this. And he was yelling at the women and grinding the wheat assiduously, like boom, boom, grind, 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 would not stop. And then eventually the women grabbed the grinder from Baba and took it and started grinding it themselves, at which he started yelling at them even more. And then in the dream, I distinctly remember his saying to them, out, out, go take it where you're supposed to take it. Take it, take it. And the women ran out of the masjid where they were with him and proceeded to go around the outskirts of Shirdi village and distribute the grinded wheat on the outskirts in a circle around this small village. But nevertheless, it took them a while, 4 women, to do this. Now, I didn't know that at that moment, but I knew they took the wheat and went away from where he was, and he kind of yelled them out, jowled them out. Okay, that in itself is what it is, a dream. But the next day, I was very turned on by this. Oh my God, I had a dream about Shirdi Sai Baba. I darshan of a great siddha. And so I thought, I'm going to go to a book and read about him all day. Screw everything. I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to sit and read about Shirdi Sai Baba, meditate about him, and smoke ganja about it, and the whole thing. So I picked up a book, which was, there's many books about Sai Baba, but this was a very thin little book. And it was an Indian book, and therefore was falling apart. And opened it, and the very first chapter was this. And I'm going to read from the book. Is that okay, Raghu? Because it's kind of long. All right.
No.
All right. The book said, and remember, I just picked up the book and opened it. It was sometime after 1910. There was an epidemic of cholera in Shirdi. The administration tried everything they could to alleviate the sufferings of people. At last, some people approached Sai Baba and pleaded with him to help. The fakir was moved. He went to a nearby house, picked up a grinding stone, and began to make preparations for grinding wheat. He spread a sack on the floor, and thereon set a grinding stone and started grinding the wheat by putting a few handfuls at a time of wheat. Devotees thought, what business Baba had with the grinding of wheat when he possessed nothing and stored nothing, and he lived on alms? Immediately, this news of Baba's grinding wheat spread into the village, and at once men and women ran to the masjid and flocked there to see Baba's act. 4 bold women from the crowd forced their way up and, pushing Baba aside, took forcibly the peg or handle into their hands and, singing Baba's leelas, started grinding. At first, Baba was enraged, but on seeing the women's love and devotion, he was much pleased and began to smile. While they were grinding, they began to think that Baba had no house, no property, no children, none to look after, and he lived on alms, and therefore he did not require any wheat flour for making bread or roti. What will he do with this big quantity of flour? Perhaps, as Baba is very kind, he will distribute the flour amongst us. Thinking in this way while singing, they finished the grinding, and after putting the hand mill aside, they divided the flour into 4 portions and took them on one each on their heads. Sai Baba, who was calm and quiet up till now, got wild and started abusing him, saying, "Have you gone mad? Whose father's property are you looting away from me? Have I borrowed any wheat from you so you can safely take the flour? Now do this. Take the flour and sprinkle it on the village borders." On hearing this, the women felt abashed, and whispering amongst them went away to the outskirts of the village and spread the flour as directed by Baba. From this time onward, the cholera epidemic started to subside. Patients recovered, and Shirdi was completely free from this doom of cholera. So, you got a double miracle here for this little lad here from the north of England. One was having the dream, which is rare. I'd had a few dreams about Sai Baba, but not many. And the clarity of the dream was amazing and transformative, as you can imagine, Raghu. And then picking up the book, and it was the first thing I saw, and it was the first thing in the book. That's why, was that exact story. And it was the day after I had the dream. And I'd never read that book. It was unread by me. And I'd never heard the story, and I didn't know anything about it. And the dream. So there's many things going on here. One, I had a dream that I don't dream, or I dream, but I don't remember them. 2, I had the exact dream of what actually happened, which was in itself kind of a miracle. And then reading what actually happened was that he took a physical set of molecules, ground wheat, and used it to protect his village from this awful disease. On further study, I found that the grinding of the wheat, which he did sometimes, was for him always a way of presenting to the people around him, you must continue to grind away at your foolishness and whimsical nature and attachment to wealth and power. And that was his way of doing it. So there's many things going on there.
Yeah.
Well, since then, my own sense of connection with him has deepened, because it was a real kind of moment in one's life. It's just a real incredible moment. And just so you know, I mean, Raghu had continuous darshan with Maharaji and with others. I've had similar experiences, not Maharaji, but others, and lives of non-skepticism in the way of opening your heart to these men and women who live and exist beyond time and space, a normal causation, because they are indeed God men and God women. I remain a skeptical person, and Raghu and I are very similar, I think, in the sense that we're not easy prey. It has to be direct experience of some kind in order to talk to other people about it and say, this has meaning. It's not just a wish fulfillment exercise in, living in this rather strange world we live in, with all kinds of antagonisms and foolishness. When I saw that photograph of the wife of the Treasury Secretary coming off the plane that they'd hired, that they had no right to be in, and then she went on to describe in intimate detail the designer clothes and shoes and scarves and haircut that she had, I thought, nah, I gotta die. I don't want to be on this fucking planet anymore with this person and these people who stole the United States of America from us, acting. But the real truth isn't it, that this is all a passing dream in any case. It'll be gone in a second. In one of the Sai Baba books, he mentions to a devotee, he says, yeah, this life is like a day, or it's like a single note. So don't get too stressed by Herr Trump or the rest of them, because it'll all be dust. And that gets to the vibhuti and udi part of Shirdi Sai Baba, who would create healing vibhuti dust. But again, it wasn't just the literal miraculous process of healing. It was that he would say frequently, this is what you're going to become, folks. You think you're a king? You think you got a great talk show? You think you design great jewelry? See this dust that's on my picture? You're going to be that, like, really soon. And there is in there an ultimate kind of teaching.
I have a thought that when we discussed doing this and talking about Shirdi, the thought that came to me is Ram Dass says on a fairly continual basis, everyone has a guru. You don't necessarily meet that guru in the physical body. They do not require connecting with you through a physical body if they are the true guru. So recently, actually it's going on right now, we're actually doing an autumn mindfulness and meditation course, Ram Dass course, that just started yesterday. And it's going on through October, I believe. And we have a Facebook group where people join and are able to communicate and talk to each other about the elements of the course and pose questions, and some of us will, respond and so on. And one of them was, everyone has a guru? What does that mean? Kind of, that kind of, really straight ahead question. And now you talked about these miracles that Shirdi Sai Baba is known for many, many extraordinary miracles. They're in these books that you can find. And of course, Neem Karoli Baba, same thing. And we were party to those. So in that way, there's not even that's why Ram Dass, when he first came back, and had these experiences, there was such a deep trust in him. That's why so many of us went over to India at that time to experience what he experienced. But those miracles, as he found out, were just, they were just a carnival barker come on. come on in, watch the show. So, you were blown away and you let go. And in this case, watching the show meant letting your mind go. Stop being dependent, thinking that your thinking mind and your feelings and your sight and your hearing, all of your senses, were your reality. Once that got smashed up, you had a chance to move into another plane of consciousness. And in that other plane of consciousness was the possibility of connecting with that truth that is represented by a being like Shirdi Sai Baba, in this case we're talking about. And I have to point you out to be, in this case, David, because I know of your connection with him. I mean, we've known each other since I came back from India in it's probably 73, I think. 72 when we met, probably when I came back, 73, we went to Hilda's, and that's where I met you. And I know of your deep, deep connectivity with him throughout all these years. He who left that body in 1918, and I think you're living proof to everybody out there who's listening when we talk about the reality is that everyone does have that inner guide that manifests, in a with a name and a face, and that connectivity happens, and nothing that you do about it, they get you. You don't find them. I mean, you may hear David's story right now. You may hear this dream. You may hear some other aspect during this podcast about this being, and something may just click, and you go, wow, that's, I'm gonna check it out. And in that checking out, something else happens. This has happened. Innumerable thousands and thousands of people have come to Neem Karoli Baba through just reading Miracle of Love, and now Love Everyone, and other of Ram Dass's books and so on. So I guess I'm just getting at the point is the effort that anyone might put in to allow their minds to be shattered, allow themselves to not stay fixed in the identification with who we think we are as we've grown up, allows that other place, allows these beings to actually come in and connect with you. And I just heard, a story of a woman, a banker in New York, whose son gave her a birthday gift, happened to be, and she was not into any of this stuff, happened to be a CD by Krishna Das, a chant CD. And she thought, oh, this is interesting, and it didn't, but she kept on to it, might listen to it a little bit. Then she decided soon after she wanted to go on a vacation in South America. And she knew about Omega, and Omega has a place in, I forget which country, in South America. And it was completely booked. She didn't know who was giving, the retreat or any of it. And then while she was on the phone, they went, oh, somebody just canceled. You can come. It was Krishna Das. She goes to the event, and she's sitting through the stuff, and then at one point he's doing chalisas. She didn't know nothing from it. What's a Hanuman Chalisa? 40 verses in praise of the monkey god. Who's that? She closed her eyes and just went along through the waves of the feeling that the singing was bringing to her. And then suddenly something snapped, and she fell apart and just weeping for not any reason, had no idea. David, from that point on, this woman is completely connected to Maharaji and has had incredible miracles happen to her that would blow your mind. Yeah. So, what was it that the karma of getting that thing, that record from Krishna Das, the karma of wanting to go to a place that she didn't even know he was at? It's really way beyond our control. I mean, if we think we're doing, remember, David is working, by the way, everybody, on this incredible film about K.C. Tiwari, one of our mentors in India, who is one of the closest beings to Neem Karoli Baba over the last 60 years of his life or something, and he used to come. David knows this well, and he would look in your eyes and go, "If you think you're doing it, my boy, you are very lost. If you think you're doing it, you're lost, So, and that's such a truism, man. So this is a great story, Dave. Really great. And everybody, no matter what, I'm saying it's potentially, you're listening to this out there. Its potential is that you may have a connectivity with Shirdi Sai Baba. You may have a connectivity to Neem Karoli Baba, Ramana Maharshi. I mean, I just did an amazing podcast, Dave, the other day with a longtime devotee who wrote a wonderful book, Be As You Are, with Ramana. Be open. Anything can happen. But even if none of it happens in this moment, at the very least, these beings have incredible teachings. The essence of Shirdi Sai Baba, to cut through that sectarian bullshit in his lifetime of Muslims and Hindus, which, they've been rioting and killing each other forever. And of course, look what's going on in our times right now with, obviously Muslim and Christianity. And that's been going on forever. These beings shine a light that we can embody. And we need to embody. So even if it's not a personal connectivity to your quote unquote, to him as a guru, there is certainly a light that we can absorb and we certainly can emulate in this world. So,
well, what I wanted to not add to that, because you really sort of completed the vision of that. But I used to sometimes think that people who were with gurus and stuff were, crazy, actually, a long time ago. But I did think that. And then various things moved me away from that, including, ethnogenic, or whatever you call them, ethnogenic psychedelic drugs and all of that. But much more important than that, I realized a long time ago, and I think someone urged me towards this, but I don't remember who, was that we think we're so cool, who the heck with a brain is going to look at a picture of a dead old man and go into a transformed state or into a state of pure service or altruism. The fact of the matter is we're also poverty stricken. I was, in terms of my connection to the universe and to any divine source. That is the height of arrogance to say that a picture won't help you. A picture will damn well help you, because it reminds you that this being, in this case Shirdi Sai Baba, or quite a few others, Ramana Maharshi, of course, so many that we know about, that is the only way you're going to get through to that. In other words, you can have this, I guess they call it Advaitic connection to the universe, and I don't believe in gods and deities and teachers or anything, but most of us don't. So it's really stupid to reject one when you don't have the other. And that was what got to me early on in my relationship with the Maharaji satsang, was that most of the people that are, all of the people are terrific people, and in some ways very normal people. Well, yeah, I mean, they're not floating around in this kind of new agey, bliss-filled detachment from the world. Not at all. I mean, Krishna Das has said quite recently, actually, I read it somewhere, that, I don't have to go into the jungle. I will, but I don't have to. I like to be in the world and of the world and see how that works. And for me, just to look at a picture of Maharaji or Shirdi Sai Baba or Anandamayi Ma and some others will fill me with a feeling and a connection which I do not have just automatically. Therefore, the rejection of people who do this is arrogant and stupid, because those people are simply humbling themselves to say, I need this to get to that. I need it. It will not happen by reading books, or it won't happen just by even meditation. I need to look in the eyes of an ascended master and go, you existed and you exist. Ergo, I can relieve myself of the worst aspect of nihilism and lack of faith and somewhere to go apart from, the bathroom. I mean, it's so powerful to look at an icon when you need that. And I did. I needed to look at pictures of Shirdi. I have them all over my house. When Krishna Das came here recently, he was in my apartment for like 20 seconds and he looks around and he goes, this Shirdi Sai Baba is everywhere. I said, yeah, is that a problem? And he said, no, he's everywhere. Look here, he's there, he's everywhere. And it's true. And the reason is I need that. If I don't have that, I'm pretty lost, because I'll get depressed about, oh God, the world is so fucked up and I'm getting older, I'm going to die. And my daughter didn't call me for 6 months and whatever, and I realize that we have to humble ourselves to the extent of saying connection with an out of body or a long passed away teacher, guru, like Ananda Mayima. I defy anyone to look at a picture of Ananda Mayima for longer than 30 seconds and not be moved from where they were.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, this is not a podcast of proselytizing for gurus. This is not what this is about. This is about David's story. That's why, I really wanted to do this, because it shows the possibility of an opening through a being like this. And that's all I'm really counting on for everybody listening, is to be open to any possibility. And when you are reading about beings like this, for instance, you know that this has gone through the test of time. And there are many teachers that come from the East, and they do take advantage of people, and they are not, they are not truth. But there are known truth beings. That's another way to put it. And that's why we wanted to introduce everybody to Shirdi Sai Baba. So thank you, David, for doing that.
It makes me really happy to do this, because it makes me think about him.
Yeah.
Because another aspect of this, which is really unfortunate for most of us, is that we can spend hours, days, months in another place, obsessed with whatever it is that we're worried about, And then the reason I do put pictures of him all over the place is because I can't get away from him. And I don't want to, because the grace of even knowing about him, before knowing about him and Maharaji and a few others, the people I was most crazed about in the world were usually great novelists, great blues players, and Eric Clapton. And, they were inspiring to me. And still are.
But you're from England. For us, it was Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, okay? At least you had great novelists. We had Mickey Mouse.
No, I'm being pretentious. I wasn't reading great novels at the age of 4, but my horizon was okay if you're 20 years old, maybe. But when you get to be ancient, it's not enough, because you realize that very soon, this Maya, this dream of life will eventually turn into another reality.
Yeah.
And that those kind teachers, like the ones we've been mentioning, are there to impress upon us that our vision out of conditioning, out of the cultural conditioning we grew up in, is very limited, and it will cause depression and worse. I watched this TV show called American Greed. It's a ridiculous television show, but I watch it. It's about people who did really bad, egregious things. They start a company and then start stealing money, like Madoff and everything. And I watched that thing with De Niro playing Madoff, and I actually watched the other one with Richard Dreyfuss playing Madoff. God knows why. My partner in life was looking at me as if I'd literally gone mad. Why are you wasting your time with these fools, these greedy pigs? Karma, just seeing the obsessions of people, and then it doesn't end well. It doesn't end well for Bernie Madoff, who's in jail forever, and he's just an extreme example. But the fact is, you have to have compassion for people who just never come into contact with anything which can transform them.
Hey, I have to say, I have to make
Jeff Sessions, if you're listening.
Okay, please.
Go and take
Come on,
some.
we were so uplifted. Please.
I just wanted to inform him that he should take a nice dose of organic mescaline.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's what we used to say in the 60s, right?
Yes.
Nixon needs a little dose of acid, and we'll put it in his water.
Yeah.
But I want to just say, cause we're at the end of the show, you've reminded me when you told the story about Krishnadas walking and going, wow, there's just Shirdi Sai Baba wall to wall. And, you could say that about Neem Karoli Baba here, in my room right now. And that reflection, when you do look at that being, and to me they're interchangeable, is reflecting on your true self. And that reminds of what Ramana Maharshi, the great sage of Arunachala, said. And this is, to me, the highest truth. God, Guru, and self are one. So when that reflection comes in and you identify that being with the truest part of yourself, that is really what this is about. This is, ultimately, this is about the assimilation. I don't know if that's the right word. This is about the joining, the yoga. This is what yoga is all about, of the individual soul and the oversoul. Right? Jivatman and Atman. And this is just a method to do that. At a certain point, when you've reached your destination, which is understanding that without mind, that you are just one. You are that being, and you are a part of the fabric of the one. So this, walking into David's house and seeing Shirdi everywhere is an immediate reflection on that place inside ourselves, which is truth. So, it is a very, very specific method. So I urge everybody out there, go check out Shirdi Sai Baba. We're going to put up David will give us names of some of the books that he would recommend. We're going to put them up on the show notes so people, you can go get them. We're going to put up the stuff around Marley that we talked about. I don't know about the cold shower stuff. We'll figure that one out too. And the third patriarch stuff. It's going to be a rich page, Dave, full of fantastic information.
Yeah.
And so again, I really appreciate you being here as usual. I try and grab Dave every month or so. Because
Raghu, what's so great about this stuff is that just doing this podcast with you, and having done many, but this one that we're talking about right now here, it helps me maintain my concentration on this miracle of being even allowed to know that this person exists. Because isn't it kind of perplexing that if I were to go to everybody in my apartment building and say, have you heard of Shirdi Sai Baba? They'd go, no, what is that? Is that Indian food? And, it's not because they're stupid. It's because it's a great, great gift from that being to you, to let you be even aware of them.
Exactly.
And while I'm making this film for Raghu, I love to remember about Mr. Tiwari, I'm constantly, sort of enlightened by it. I don't mean fully enlightened. I just mean it enlightens me in the immediate.
Yeah.
When you see this man, K.C. Tiwari, in Samadhi, and then other people, he was an amazing devotee of Neem Karoli, but also a huge catalyst and friend and teacher for the Westerners who were there.
Yeah.
I met him, and he was that for me too. And I just think to myself, God, what a gig this is. I'm every day I'm having to look at pictures of great beings.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be making a film to do that. All you need to do is get a book and look at it and see if it fits your bill.
Have good karmas. That's what you got to have, which you do, and everybody listening as well does, to just about hear about these beings. So Thank you again,
Thank
David.
you. Thank you.
Namaste. We shall see you
Yeah.
next time. Everybody go to BeHereNowNetwork.com, go to Mindrolling, and you'll catch the all of the show notes will include everything as we said before. We'll see you next week.